Hi there, Steve Kaufmann here. I'm in sunny Palm Springs. The weather is very warm, 90 to 100 in their Fahrenheit, which is up there around 35 degrees centigrade or something. Today, I want to talk about a subject that comes up all the time, and it's in response to a question that I received from a person writing in Russian from Russia. And the question was, how do you get to where you can think in the language you're learning? And this person was saying that I think it's a she was learning and, knows a lot of words and stuff, but she always ends up translating from Russian into English because the language is so different and so forth. And how do you get to where you think in the language? So this is in response to her, and because it's a subject that comes up all the time. So let me just say up front, I never think about the question of whether I'm translating from English into another language or not. It's not something that is an item of concern to me. I realize that in all the languages that I'm learning or that I have learned or that I speak, it's always a mixture of some things that we say naturally in the language and some things that we are subconsciously or even deliberately translating from either our own language or a related language that we know very, very well. So to me, in learning a language, my main goal is to increase my vocabulary, the words and phrases that I know in the new language. That's what I work on. And I acquire these words and phrases largely through listening and reading and to some extent reviewing them. And the more words and phrases that I have, the more natural, the better my understanding, my comprehension, the more interesting things I'm able to listen to, and the more these words and phrases become part of me. Now, if I think of certain languages, okay, obviously the structure of a new language very often is different from the structure of our own language. So while we, for certain, difficult words, we may think of the word, comprehension or, predisposition or something like that. We may think of it first in our own language and then search for it in the new language. But for a lot of the things that we want to say, we start to adopt the phrasing of the target language. So if we take the case of Russian, for example, if I were to say, it seems to me, I would say, мне кажется, it seems to me. But that's very Russian. That's not, you can't be saying that and translating. It's something you get used to saying. It's like, in Japanese, very often people, to give themselves time to respond to a question, they might just say, どうでしょうかね? そうですね, which just is nothing really that, oh, okay, I see. And so you start saying these things, in Chinese, 这个不太要紧, 不太要紧, it's not too, I don't know, you end up with these sort of natural phrases that pop out if you've heard them often enough. But there's nothing wrong with attaching the learning of a new language to a language you already know. We need to associate the new words and new phrases with a corresponding word or phrase in a language that we know. That's how we first acquire the new word or phrase. We learn that this is how they say it in this language. And I have always said that I always, even in a language that I know very well, I prefer a bilingual dictionary because it gives me an immediate suggestion as to the meaning of a new word that I encounter. And yet I don't have any real confidence that I know that word or that I can use that word until I see the word in many, many more contexts. So that first lookup in a dictionary is just a hint to get me going. It's no more than that. And so I don't need a lengthy explanation in the target language. I find it easier if I can connect it to a language that I already know, usually my own language. And so to the extent that if I'm explaining some difficult concept in some language and I'm relying to some extent on vocabulary that I know from my own language, I don't see that there's anything particularly wrong about that. And I don't think really that we know At least I don't ever have the sense that I know if I am translating from English or if I'm relying on sort of natural new habits that I have created in the new language. I don't even worry about it. It doesn't come up. My concern, and I'm going to show you sort of a graph of my Arabic on the graphs that we now have at Link showing the growth of my vocabulary. This is all I worry about. I also, to some extent, I can't say that right now I'm worrying about it in Arabic because I don't speak very much, but say in Slavic languages, this what Krashen refers to as the affective filter, that sense of insecurity when you don't know if you've got the right case ending, or if you're using the subjunctive in say some other languages where you second guess yourself. Those are the things that bother me when I'm speaking, that rather than just going with what I would be naturally inclined to say, I try and second guess myself, refer back to grammar rules, which is actually not a good thing to do. But I do confess that I do that, and that inhibits my speaking. But as for worrying about whether I translate from English or don't translate from English, I don't worry about it. I am sure that the languages that I speak the best, I do less of it. The language that I don't speak so well, I do more of it. It probably helps me in many grammatical situations. The most common everyday expressions, I think we more quickly move into a situation where we're just using the natural, expressions and phrases of the new language. And when we get into more complicated situations, we may rely on, a reference to our own language and a translation. I really don't see that as a problem. So I'd be very interested in your comments because it comes up all the time, and hopefully this also answers the question that I received from someone in Russia. So thank you for listening. And, next week at this time, I will have been in Buenos Aires for 3 days. We're starting to get some people together for a meeting in Buenos Aires, maybe on the 3rd of October, which would be I don't have it in front of me. The 3rd, is that Wednesday? It might be. And hopefully I'll meet some people in Buenos Aires. And then from there I'm going to Mendoza for 3-4 days, back to Buenos Aires. Then I'm going to Iguazu, from Iguazu to Rio. We spent a few days in Rio, from Rio to Salvador, from Salvador back to Rio, then to Lima, then to Machu Picchu, back to Lima for a few more days, and then returning home on the 29th of October. So, thank you for listening. Bye for now.